Thanks, Sunny. Hi, everyone. My name's Joel. As Sunny kindly said, I'm going to talk to you about transit access, which is this thing that I have created to centralize public transit accessibility. I will introduce myself briefly. Cool, there's an elevator picture. That's nice. I'm Joel. You can refer to me by he and him. I'm going to give an image description of what the slide is. I'm a white man with a small smile in a wheelchair looking back at the camera. So that's me. I'm Joel. I'm a visibly disabled ambulatory wheelchair user, and I love public transit. It's really funny to be in this room where people are throwing around like Andrew's track map, which is the most niche thing I've ever heard, which is a great resource, by the way. So a little bit about why I created this. This is going to be less of a technical explanation of what's going on and more of a why this needs to exist. I spent about 13 years in the San Francisco Bay Area and took public transit on BART and on Muni. BART and Muni, both systems, well, BART is 100% accessible. Muni is not 100% accessible, but it is quite accessible for people in mobility devices, at the very least. That said, I still had problems. For example, that system closes down overnight. So you could imagine a situation where if you're a wheelchair user, you get to a station on the last train and the elevator's out of service, but you didn't know. And there's no other train in that direction, but that train already left. One could hypothetically be stuck on that platform. Yes, it happened to me. So things like this happen all the time to disabled people who use transit. So that I bring that story up because that's an example of what happens in a perfectly accessible subway system, right? I moved to New York 2 years ago. The system is 26% accessible. Now it's maybe 27%. It's gaining some speed very slowly for many exciting reasons over the last 10 years that have led to a commitment to 95% accessibility by 2055. So that's great, but it's not an accessible system, right? So it's actually, I moved here and was very disappointed in the accessibility of the subway. And honestly, the accessibility of New York in general, I could talk about that a lot, but I won't. So I decided that there could be a better model or at least something that could ease, I call it the anxiety of traveling while disabled, because you have to know so much information just to get from point A to point B. Like I have to know the entire subway system just to go from, 125th to 14th, as an example, right? So to create something that has a lot of information that is useful for a disabled person is the primary goal of this. I will also introduce someone who's co-developing this with me. This is Prachi. Hey, Prachi's here. Prachi came. Image description, a South Asian woman with a slight smile, hand resting on her chin and wearing a purple shirt. So Prachi and I have been developing a web app currently that deals with some of these problems. So I'll give you a layout of the problems of transit accessibility. Everybody ready? Okay. One, so my problem with this is that transit accessibility is hidden. You have to go deep into the Transit Authority's website. You have to decipher difficult information. It's inconsistent between transit systems. So BART, as I said, is 100% accessible, but and you can board anywhere on the platform. New York City subway is 26% accessible. You have to go to the middle of the platform. You can't board anywhere else on the entire platform, but the middle of the platform. Muni, as I mentioned earlier in San Francisco, opposite. You have to go to the front. And this is just information that you need to know, right? I talked about the anxiety of traveling while disabled. This is what I'm talking about. The third problem that I find with accessibility information is that it's problems-based, right? It talks about elevators that are broken. It says that the system is only 26% accessible. It basically says, okay, this system isn't for you. Like, go deal with that. I'll give you an example. This is an image of the MTA, the old MTA website showing elevator outages. It does look better now, thanks to people who might be in this room. This shows elevator outages. And you can see it's just a list of elevators, right? So this is all the information I used to get when I moved here. Okay, here's a list of elevators that are out. Go deal with the system that you don't know, you just moved here, right? This is an image of travel alternatives. It says travel alternatives, and there's this large block of text that's about 2 miles long that you have to completely decipher on your own, and it makes almost no sense. And it basically says, if you're on the mezzanine, you have to do this and this and this and this. And just to be clear, this is travel alternative if an elevator goes out of service, right? So, okay, you get to the mezzanine and the elevator's out of service. This is what you do. You're on the platform, the elevator's out of service. This is what you do, right? So this is not a good system. Thank you, MTA, for providing it, but it's really difficult to use. This is an example for BART. This is just a list of elevators. It says the Coliseum elevator is out of service for major repair. It gives you an estimated time of return, but it doesn't really tell you what to do, right? So I'm interested in creating something that lets disabled people know what they can do and that they are in fact part of a community that mildly cares about them, right? So that's what I'm interested in creating. So that I'm doing this in 2 ways. One is with community and one is with an app. I'm talking about the app, but I should say I'm not a technologist. That is to say, I don't really believe that technology is the solution. I think it's an interesting component to the solution, but it's not how we solve problems. So one of the things I'm working on now is gathering disabled people and non-disabled people who are interested in transit accessibility over a series of Zoom meetings that are going to happen over the next few months. I'm partnering with a company named Aspiration Tech, who's been helping with the details of that. But the idea is to gather disabled people and figure out what everybody needs to travel through the systems that they travel through. I want to know what disabled people want because I know what I want, but I'm just one disabled person, and I don't really speak for most people. Then the second part of the solution is the app that I will show you. It's not this is a focused accessibility app, right? This is not a comprehensive transit app. It's not a Google, it's not a Move It or Citymapper. It's focused on the accessibility of the system. The idea ultimately is that it's consistent between systems, so you know what to expect when you travel to San Francisco or Atlanta and ride MARTA, for example. At the moment, we've mapped the New York accessibility system, and in the future, we hope to do all of them. This is solutions-based, right? The idea of this app is to show you that the metro is indeed for you, and here are the paths that you can take, and here's what's accessible, and here's what's not accessible. As I said before, the idea is that this is designed to ease the anxiety of traveling while disabled, which is just something that I'm interested in, and I think it might help other people too. So I'll show you the website. It's live. You could scan this right now, or you can go to transitaccess.org, and I'll walk you through it, and I'll explain a little bit about it technically if you're interested. But I feel like it's pretty straightforward. it's Node, it's React, it's Mapbox, and it's a bunch of JavaScript code, and that's how it runs. And it's using the API. The open APIs given by the MTA for real-time elevator outages. And a bunch of GTFS. Okay. So I guess I could show you this works on both desktop or mobile. So I guess if you're looking at it on your phone, you're gonna see a slightly different version. This is the New York City subway system. It has a blue check mark if every elevator is in service. it has a yellow exclamation mark if there is an elevator out of service, but there are elevators in service, which is really important to know. And it has a red exclamation mark if the entire station is out of service, which does happen. And this is really important to know, right? You can be going, so there's talk of northbound versus southbound, right? Which is a wild concept to talk about with the MTA, but you can be going southbound, which might actually mean you're going north for a second. Anyway, you're going southbound on the train, and you get to a station. You need to know if that direction is going to be accessible, right? It doesn't matter if the other direction is out of service. If your direction is in service, that's really useful information to know. So if we go into a station, we can see, I'm going to go into 14th Street. We can see, and on desktop, it's going to be on the left. On your phones, it's going to be in the middle, this pop-up that comes up. 14th, we can see that the Uptown elevator to ACE trains is out of service. Wonder when it's coming back in service. 18 days. Okay, great. That's good to know. In 18 days, it'll be back. There's a little picture of the elevator. We have information about the elevator. We can see that's out of service. We see that if you click the question mark, it says, okay, there's no other accessible path. This is a measure of redundancy in the system. So if there is another elevator that you could use to get into the station, this question mark will show up as blue, and it will say, hey, there's another path. Don't worry, like you can still go here. It's a useful system. I'll give you an example. Atlantic Ave. If you look it up on Google right now, which is starting to take real-time data, real-time elevator data, it's starting to weave that into its navigating, which is great. It doesn't know redundancy. So for example, if you're going to Atlantic Ave on the, I think it's 2-3, it's either that or the D, I can't quite remember. One of those has an elevator outage. We could look it up together right now. And one of those has redundancy. So you actually can go into Atlantic Ave, but Google says you can't go into Atlantic Ave, right? So there's a lot of information that you need to know. And the goal here is to distill that information and show it to you and say, hey, this is what's possible and this is what's not possible. I'll show you just a couple more stations and a couple more features. So like I said, the MTA has recently committed to 95% accessibility by 2055, which is great, but it's really far away. So I'm trying to make something that will help people along the way. One thing that's happening is that the MTA is replacing elevators. They're not just adding new elevators, they're also replacing old elevators. This is great, but they take 6 to 12 to maybe 15 months to replace an elevator. So it's really, really impactful when this happens. So I've created this little system here that shows us with it's pretty small probably, but if you look on mobile or on your computers or something, oh boy, I haven't tested on tablet. Wonder how that's working.
What station? 70
seconds. We can see that there's an upcoming long-term outage because there's this little wrench icon next to 72nd. And this means that there's an upcoming long-term outage. And we better learn about it. If we go into the station, we can say there's an upcoming long-term outage in about 1 month, and that's a capital replacement. And this means that this elevator is going to be out of service for 9 months at least. So that's really useful to know. For me, I know to stay away from that station in about 1 month, right?
Yeah, the wrench is there in a certain magnification. If you go too far in, then the wrench kind of goes away.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that is a feature, but I agree that it's a little bit confusing. Basically, there's a level at which you see a station. And then if you zoom in, you start to see individual elevators and that wrench goes away. But if you go into that station, you see all the elevators in that station and you can actually click the wrench there and it will show you exactly what it showed you at the station level. Great feedback. You can also search for a station. Isn't that cool? You can search for an actual station. Like, let's go to 125th, see what's going on. Okay, there's one elevator out of service. There's 3 elevators at the station. The street elevator is in service. That's great. The uptown elevator is out of service, but the downtown elevator is in service. And I can see that all quickly. And I know now that I can leave my home, but I can't go home. So that's what we've been working on. We follow very closely what's happening. I meet with MTA frequently and make sure I have the right information. So, you know, any new station should be there. If you catch a new station, a newly accessible station, I mean, if you catch a newly accessible station that isn't there, please let me know. But that is the gist of this app. There are many things that we plan to do with it, but this is the first step. And we're excited to tell people to use it and see if it's useful for them. There was something else I wanted to tell you about. Yes, so I'll tell you that the very first reason I made this, which is I didn't know where to find street elevators, right? Especially being when I was new to New York 2 years ago. There are massive street corners. You can't always find the elevator. It's not well marked. There isn't really a good resource that maps every street elevator. So that's how this started. I mapped every street elevator in the system, and it uses open data, but that open data is not always 100% complete. So there's a lot of additional research I had to do to create my own elevator data set, which has all that information about latitude, longitude. So this has the exact elevator locations of all, I don't know, 130 street elevators or something. There's 400 elevators in the system. Maybe someone else. I should know how many street elevators there are. Anyway, that is the Transit Access app. And I just want to shout out some more people who have helped me work on this. Caleb and Andrew and Alexis have all volunteered their time, and Prachi as well. And we're just kind of trying to make this thing up and get out there so people can turn it into something and like make it useful for the world. So that's what I'm working on. What questions do you have? Yeah.
So I may have just missed this. Is it New York focused, or how transferable is it to like other cities? Like say you want like LA or Paris or something, as long as you had similar data.
So it's currently New York focused, only because we had to start somewhere. But the idea is that we're going to expand to other domestic systems first, and then international systems ultimately. But that's a huge project, and it requires a lot more people than we are right now. But yes, right now it's New York focused. I do have elevator data for San Francisco because I spent so much time there. So I'm developing these massive elevator data sets, which I never thought I would do. I'm a musician, by the way. That's my job. But yeah, we're gonna expand. That's the goal.
I want to share my use case for this app.
Great.
I bike a lot, and
Yeah.
sometimes I need to take the train with my bike,
Yeah.
and it's really annoying to show up with no elevator and have to carry that heavy bike through the crowds down the steps. But also, I was wondering, like, do you have plans to support the ability to report elevator outages as like you're passing by and then elevator's out of service and
Totally.
it hasn't updated yet?
Totally. So there are a couple of bottlenecks in the MTA elevator reporting system that can lead to inaccuracies in the data. So sometimes, yeah, you can get to an elevator and it's out of service and it said it was in service. And this app will not help with that situation, right? But our goal in version 2 or version 3 is to implement community, Waze style crowdsourced information to say, hey, I just got here and the elevator's out of service. So yeah, the answer is yes. I think it would be really useful.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Very interesting, Joel. But have you ever talked to MTA engineers directly to explain this situation? Or yes, have you talked to MTA engineers?
Yeah. I
And?
reached out to them, and I've talked to Sunny too.
Yes.
I've talked to a lot of people there. and they're all aware of the problem, and they know what I'm working on, and we're sort of, you know, I'm not gonna say like we're working together, but we're working in sync, right?
Yeah, for instance, right now there is a bid for 42nd Street. I mean, the Grand Central and the other colindant stations like Bryant Park and others. And there's this project for new elevators. I was there in the metro in the stations visit because well, I'm part of a company who does that type of work. So my question is, this work that you are doing, even this app, that would be also MTA's responsibility, because if they're forwarding these systems of ADA and it's so important for the city, and probably this 26% is probably the most well-known station, not all, right? They will be aware of this. They will do this type of application that you are working on, I guess, because it's also a project internal from the MTA. So I'm just curious, these things that you are doing should be done by them. So who, I mean, I know Sunny works on MTA, but it's a big organization, but it will be a responsibility of them too, right?
Totally. And they do have an accessibility office, and they have people dedicated to this, and they are making strides. Like the slide I showed you with the elevators out is way better now.
Okay.
So that they're making progress, which I'm really happy to see. Yes, there is this problem of disabled people always doing the labor of accessibility, which is a problem. But I don't mind doing this project. And my vision for this project is beyond the MTA. So yes, the MTA needs to do everything in their power to make accessibility better within their systems, and they are doing that. And I'm creating this thing to supplement that and to create something
that's great.
I guess that puts accessibility first. Because even the MTA app will never do that, because that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to be the MTA, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for doing this presentation. This is an amazing project. I had a question about the UI for the app. I noticed that when you click on one of the stations, there's a yellow square that appears. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering, so it looks like that's sort of covering where the entrances and exits might be. And so one question is, how did you determine sort of the parameters of that? And then I noticed other stations, there's a pink shading that's like a little bit more specific maybe.
Wow, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, sort of same question, like
Great.
what the parameters were.
Very observant. So they're very different. The yellow thing that flashes is something that was created, that we created, which is taking all the coordinates of every street elevator and creating a basically a quadrilateral that accommodates all of those longitudes. And so it just says, it's sort of a useless feature. It just says, hey, here are the elevators, and then it goes away.
That feature.
Really? Great. Good. Because I spent a lot of time on that. But yeah.
It needs to be on the screen more.
Great. Okay. The pink is part of an open library through Mapbox, and it outlines some stations. So it's an outline of the station itself. There isn't a fully comprehensive station outline set. Apple sort of created their own with their own people. They measured it, but it doesn't really exist publicly.
What about do you have any ways to support escalators too, like for people who have a suitcase or maybe they're on crutches, take an escalator, like that also works, the elevator?
Absolutely. So this is very much the step one prototype, and though I use elevators as my accessibility, elevators do not equal accessibility, right? So it's not the only thing that we're interested in. We're working on integrating escalators specifically, and then we're trying to figure out what else people need. Like it might be useful to know how many stairs there are to get to a certain line. Like the numbered lines have fewer stairs usually than the lettered lines because the lettered lines are deeper in the ground. And that's useful information for people. So things like that. are on the docket for the near future.
Thank you for a great presentation. I have a question on the.
Where is this voice coming from?
Oh, over here.
Oh, hi.
Sorry. Hello. On the development side, can you speak briefly to how you're handling accessibility management of the application itself?
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big component. I'm really curious what your process is like.
Yeah, so that's been our focus of the last month, is to make this screen reader accessible. So we're currently in the process of testing screen reader accessibility and ARIA to make sure that you can easily, without needing to look at the map, get all the information. Making maps accessible is, I've learned, very difficult. So we're trying to streamline a process that circumvents the map, that goes through the search and then into pop-ups and out of pop-ups very smoothly. But that's what we're working on, like, this week, before we officially soft launch, basically. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. One of these questions reminded me of something, which is part of my elevator data set that I've created over 2 years. Includes these little extra notes. I'll read one to you. So this is the Penn Station elevator, CE Uptown trains. And the transit access note says, overnight, you must use this elevator for Uptown A trains, because the A runs on the C tracks overnight. So you can't actually use the A elevators you can't use the A elevators for the A trains overnight, right? So you have to know that.
After like 11 p.m.
After 11, yeah. So that's all to say, these are access notes that I've created, but the idea is that a lot of people can contribute these access notes so that we have this large data set of functioning accessibility. Sorry, other people, I just wanted to say.
Hi, really cool app. I wanted to ask, regarding route planning, are you guys later wanting to add alternative methods that's not the subway, i.e. like buses or access a ride, or at some point just be like, you have to take an Uber or something like that because there's no other way?
I mean, that's a tough question. I have my own priorities for that. But at the end of the day, everyone has their own priority for that. Like, some people have a certain limit that they will handle accessibility bullshit, right? Like, some people just won't deal with that, and they don't want to deal with that, so they're just going to take a taxi if they have the means to do that, right? Some people can't do that. I, at the moment, am interested in keeping it subway focused. Or not to say it's not going to include bus stuff, because buses, I always think of buses as like the great, a bus never fails you. I know that's a joke to some people, but like, as a disabled person, the bus does not let you down. Like, the bus will always come. So it's really nice to have that as an option. That said, I want to take the subway as much as possible. So I want to know what the possibilities are. Honestly, even if it takes like a little bit longer than it would for the bus. But that's not an answer to your question. Yes, there might be features like that include other transit modes. At the moment, it's subway focused.
Yeah, so my question is, you showed us that big block of text, right?
Yeah.
How does your website incorporate that? And, like, how does it do it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't right now.
Oh.
So what you're talking about is
like the paragraphs of instructions.
Alternative routes.
Yeah.
This is a data point in the MTA equipment list, and it basically tells you what to do. There's no reason that it's not in our app right now. It's just not. The only reason is it's difficult to wrangle. And so my goal right now is to create a better way to ingest this information. And part of that might be routing, part of that might be having bus integration. But yeah, it's actually a really challenging problem to take into account every point that a person might be and tell them what to do if that elevator is out of service. So it's an unsolved problem. Great question.
Yeah, because there's like in a way that you were saying, right? It's like you kind of have to be an expert of the subway to like understand this.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, like, the way that I use this, and I am using this every day. The way that I use this is if I see an elevator's out of service, I will sort of do a quick search for my other options based on what's nearby. And that ultimately could be something that the app does for you. But that's my solution for at least myself to do alternative route planning, right? Because now I see very clearly what I can do and what I can't do. And I know, that I can go to 59th and then get out and go overground and go to 57th or something if I need to transfer to A to Q or whatever. So I can see that. That's an option.
I'm curious if path support is on the horizon.
Oh, yeah. I don't know much about their APIs. I assume it's robust-ish. But yeah, it's not in there right now. And it could be. Right now it's just the MTA subway.
I have way too many questions to
Oh, boy.
close right at this point. I'll come afterwards, but I guess one thing I'll say is, and it's very impressive. Has there been any thought to integrating LIRR and Metro North in the touch points that are obviously it's important if you're coming from out of town and going and come into the system? So I mean, how does that look?
I mean, it's only supported as much as the MTA provides right now, which is, so for example, at 61st Street Woodside, there's an elevator that leads you to LIRR, and that elevator information is known, and we have that. There isn't full LIRR integration because it's a different API and a different data set to work with. But yeah, all of these are the goal. Any transit system that you can think of, I would love for that to be a part of this. And right now it's just the MTA subway.
Okay. And I'm surprised to hear that Muni is now 100% accessible, because back last time when I took it, once it came above ground, it became a nightmare.
Muni is not 100% accessible. BART is 100% accessible. Muni has some problems above ground. Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned about late night service earlier. This might not be obvious to a lot of people, but this might be in your roadmap, that the late night subway map looks very different than what you have here. So is there plans to incorporate, I guess, like some of the challenges of like what the late night map would look like, or weekend map or holiday schedules?
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. If I could merge my app with Sunny's app, we'd be good to go. Yeah, there's a lot of real-time information that is not on here, and that's one of them. Routing is another real-time element that I'd want to integrate that is not a part of this first launch. But yeah, totally. That's a huge problem. When the 5 goes to the 2 line, suddenly you need to know those elevators, right? So that's going to be critical. And once we integrate routing or something like that, that would be a part of it. Right now, it's fairly static, except for the real-time elevator updates.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Joel. Oh, one more. Sorry. This is so cool. How do you hope to sort of reach the people that need it with the app? So how are you hoping that they're gonna be able to find, that this resource is out there?
That's the other piece I'm working on, and it's gonna be very grassroots, and I believe in grassroots efforts, and I think that by establishing some sort of regularity around disability meetups over Zoom, that can gain some traction and create a space for disabled people to talk about these things. I don't really have, there's not a huge launch plan at the moment. I'm not a big company. There's no money in this product right now. But like ultimately, yeah, there could be, and there could be a way to get out to a lot of people. If anybody has ideas, please let me know. The more disabled people and non-disabled people that interact with this, the better. So yeah, please help. If you want to sign up for an email list, I created this form that you can scan here. You can just put your email. You only have to put your email in. There's a space for your name, but you don't have to put your name. There's a space for a note, and you don't have to put a note. But yeah, that's how you can sign up to learn more. Thanks, everybody.